Hey everyone, it's Roy here from Aurora Infotech in Orlando. Hope you're having a great day today. It's certainly turning out to be somewhat of a good one here in Central Florida. Wanted to have a little discussion today on phishing and what the ramifications could be and tie that into security awareness training and why that's important. Last week, one of my favorite sharks from Shark Tank, Barbara Cochran, actually was phished successfully, I would say, for $400,000 or close to it. The attackers actually crafted an email to make it appear as if it came from her executive assistant, sent it down through her company. A wire transfer was executed, and it was not until much later that they actually realized that it was a bogus email. Unfortunately, the money's gone. And so, one of the things that I hear so many of these stories, and I, personally have encountered, prospects who later became clients, other people who have experienced similar things. And so, I started thinking, well, how can we bring this, to the front and center, so to say, and make people realize why it is important to have an ongoing formalized cybersecurity awareness training program in their company. And so as I was thinking back, it actually dawned on me, and I said, hey, you know what? A lot of you don't know this, but I'm actually a licensed pilot. I've been flying since I was 13 years old. I haven't flown in a while, but and so I said, let me take this back to my flight experience and explain you something and see if maybe that brings it front and center. So back in my flight days, and it's what any pilot has to go through, we actually go through training for something called, how to identify and how to overcome spatial disorientation. And that's basically where you're flying in an environment where there's zero visibility. You have to rely on your instrument panel, because the human body will tend to fool you. You'll tend to fool yourself, your inner ear, that you're actually flying, straight and level, when in fact you may be at a dive or a bank, or even at a very steep climb. And so one of the things that the instructor typically does is take you out to an area, and they put a hood over our face so that we can't see the horizon, we can't see left or right. The only thing that we can see is actually the instrument panel, the cockpit instrument panel, and the entire purpose of that is to force you to actually rely on your instrumentation. And so the next thing they do is they take you, the aircraft, through an entire series of turns and climbs and dives and the whole 9 yards to disorient you. And then you are expected to, identify the situation, detect it, respond to it, and remediate it. Which, if you look at it, those are 4 factors within cybersecurity, right? And so it's important, and the reason they do that over and over and over is because it's not a matter of, if such a situation will ever happen. When you're flying, it will happen. And what needs to happen at that moment in time, that's not the time when that's happening, just like any disaster, for you to then come up with a plan. What needs to happen at that point in time is you need to go into your, memory bank and memory muscle and pull that scenario out and execute what you learn. And so this is not a one-time scenario thing that, we had to go through. We had to go through it over and over and over. And it's something that you do every couple, flights, etc., so that you keep it, top of mind and front and center. The adverse part of that, I should say, or the unfortunate part of that, is if you don't recognize, you don't identify, detect, response, and remediate the situation, you could end up in what is called a deadly spiral, and you end up crashing. And so in cybersecurity, and it's the same thing, you need to implement, and you should implement, a formal cybersecurity awareness training program for your staff and for everyone who is doing anything with your business, and even so at home, so to say, because at the end of the day, if the threat landscape changes very, very quickly, there are tons and tons of new malware released every day. And so our static learning, we can't expect that to really carry us forward. And the only way that we can do so and have a standing chance is to, have a formal cybersecurity training program which your staff is taught almost on a, weekly basis on new things that are out there, how to identify them, what to look for, how to react, and as these attacks are actually improved, so too is the education that's passed on to your staff. And more so, it's not just about the education, but the testing to make sure that they understand what is being taught to them. So it's a continuous program to put it in their memory muscle so that when something happens, they can pull it out. Now, I'm not saying that in the case of Barbara Corcoran that, maybe that would have helped. Probably. And the reason why I say that is because the attackers are extremely smart. I mean, they're using all sorts of sophisticated machinery, artificial intelligence, machine learning. They're using DISC assessments, personality assessment. They're scraping social profiles, everything there that they can get their hands on to build an online profile of their victims. And so they know exactly how to, react, what triggers to push, so to say. But at the end of the day, the only way that you're going to stand a chance on that is to actually practice. And we say use, rinse, repeat, use, rinse, repeat. Well, it's that concept, and we need to bring that into your organization. I often tell my clients, and you probably heard this on either some of my other videos or read it in my blog, or if you were any of my speaking engagements. Your staff can either be your biggest asset or your single greatest cyber liability, and it's really up to you. And I'll leave you with this last tidbit about a CEO and a CFO who were having a discussion about budget. And the CEO said he wanted to implement a cybersecurity awareness training for the organization. And the CFO's response at the time was, well, what if we train all these people and they end up leaving us? I mean, we're spending a lot of money in training. And the CEO's response was, well, what if we don't train them and they end up staying? Folks, have a great one. Hope this was helpful. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep crushing it. And we'll catch up on the next video. Ciao.